From a TikToker killed by her biggest fan to a father who live-streamed the passing of his own children. 26 cases, 7 levels. This is the most disturbing incidents ever recorded on stream. Let's begin at the tip of the iceberg. Level 1. Korean TikToker versus $70,000 donor fan. A South Korean social media influencer started a live stream on an island. 30 minutes later, she was dead. Yoon Ji-ah was a rising Korean TikToker with over 300,000 followers. Her fans admired her cheerful energy and her carefully curated lifestyle videos. Like many creators, she relied on her audience's generosity, including donations, virtual gifts, and sponsorships, which helped her career grow. Among her supporters was a mysterious fan who called himself Black Cat. On her live streaming platform, donors were ranked by how much they contributed, but Black Cat wasn't just another name on the list. He was a VIP sponsor known for spending thousands of dollars on his favorite female streamer. When he approached Ji-ah, claiming to be a successful tech CEO who could elevate her career, she accepted his offer. He donated nearly $70,000, and together they formed what appeared to be a lucrative partnership. But behind his generosity hid a toxic control that led Ji-ah to want to break free. He utilized tracking applications to monitor his clients' movements and ensured they had strict limitations. Ji-ah soon began to feel the pressure. The once promising partnership had turned toxic. She decided to cut ties with him, but before she could, something went terribly wrong. After ending her live stream that day, Ji-ah stopped responding to messages. Her family grew worried and reported her missing. 3 days later, her body was discovered in a remote mountainous area nearly 3 hours away from where she last streamed. CCTV footage near the scene showed Ji-ah in a heated argument with Black Cat beside his car. She tried to escape, but he forced her back in and slammed the door. Moments later, he was seen driving off with a large suitcase, making several unexplained stops along the way. An autopsy revealed she had died from asphyxiation due to neck compression roughly 30 minutes after the live stream ended. Police used traffic cameras and GPS data to trace his movements. 12 hours after Ji-ah's body was found, they arrested Black Cat. He was identified simply by his surname, Choi. But he wasn't a CEO, nor was he rich. He was a man drowning in debt whose house had recently been auctioned off. Choi initially denied everything, but when confronted with CCTV evidence, he broke down and confessed. Investigators believe his obsession with Ji-ah and fear of losing her drove him to commit the act. U.S. police raid man while on live stream. It's not uncommon for people to show off their latest possessions on social media, like cars, phones, and clothes. However, illegal possession is usually where they draw the line, but not in this case. A man started a Facebook live stream showing off a huge bag of weed. He then turned the camera to a table covered with more, proudly revealing what he called Purple Berry Kush. His viewers watched in amusement, but his bold flex drew unwanted attention. The cops were watching. Suddenly, police stormed through the door with a flash grenade, barking orders as others in the room scrambled. The streamer quickly grabbed the bag in an attempt to hide it, but it was too late. When he reappeared on camera, the bag was gone, but it didn't matter. His live stream had been screen recorded and soon went viral with over 10 million views. It clearly showed all the evidence the police needed. His name and location haven't been made public, but his flex became his viral confession. Alleged murderer gets arrested by the German SEK. In 2019, a man was live streaming a quiet evening from his apartment when things suddenly took a dark turn. He first heard his bell ringing and commotion outside his door, and seconds later, the German SEK, a special police unit similar to the American SWAT, burst in, fired a shot, and began shouting commands. Startled, the streamer fell from his chair and curled up on the floor crying. One of the officers noticed the phone recording and quickly ended the live stream before taking him into custody. At first, viewers thought it was all staged, but that was the last time he was ever seen on the platform. Later, reports surfaced that he was allegedly wanted for the death of an old woman, though no further details have been made public. Rapper Tulo accidentally fires gun during live podcast. One-on-One with Mike D is a YouTube podcast where host Mike D has unfiltered conversations with artists and influencers. But in this episode, people would be doing more than just shooting their mouths off. About 45 minutes into the show, the guest, Texas rapper Tulo, reached into his tight jeans pocket as Mike D discussed the choices people make in life. Unknowingly, he was about to make a very bad one. Suddenly, a gun went off, blasting through his pants with a burst of orange light. He jumped up in shock, hands still in his pocket, as Mike D immediately shouted, "Who shot who?" and asked if everyone was okay. Meanwhile, Tulo sat frozen for a few seconds, staring blankly in disbelief. After confirming no one was injured, they surprisingly continued the interview as if nothing had happened. Viewers, however, were stunned that no one was hurt, not even Tulo, whose thigh had been inches from the blast. Man discovers a mummified corpse. A South Korean BJ host was filming a haunted house exploration in 2021 when he wandered into an abandoned building. But instead of the usual eerie silence, he encountered something even more terrifying. It was midnight, and the place looked exactly like an abandoned house should, untouched, with debris scattered across the floor, old clothes and belongings lying around, and even grass growing through cracks in the concrete. With a flashlight in hand, he slowly made his way inside, trying to be as cautious as he could. Suddenly, he froze and screamed.
야, 저거 사람 뼈잖아.
Lying in front of him was what appeared to be scattered human bones. Terrified, he backed away, but his curiosity led him to take another look. He turned the camera toward the spot, and this time, it clearly showed a mummified body.
사람 맞아.
He began to panic, his voice growing uneasy. The camera began to shake violently as he fumbled to end the live stream and call the police. According to police reports, the mummified body did not belong to anyone who had once lived in the building. It was suspected to be a homeless person who had sought shelter there and tragically died alone. Although there wasn't enough evidence to determine the person's height or gender visually, officers found a bag of cookies beside the body. The packaging had a 2015 production date, leading them to believe the person may have died around that time. An autopsy has been requested from the National Institute of Scientific Investigation to confirm the person's identity and determine the cause and time of death. Bloody fight among two South Korean streamers. For many live streamers, entertaining viewers sometimes means crossing the line. From eating bizarre meals to doing reckless dares, it's all about keeping people watching, even if it means violence. South Korean Twitch streamer Jangfolk1 started a daytime drinking live stream and invited another streamer to join him as a guest. At first, everything seemed normal. They chatted and drank, but soon the guests started throwing subtle insults, mocking Jangfolk1 for being a small streamer. That's when the mood shifted. The atmosphere quickly became tense as both men bragged about who the better fighter was. Moments later, they apparently decided to find out as the argument turned physical. The guests slammed Jangfolk1 onto the table as the camera shook violently. Since the table broke under the streamer's weight, it looked like the guest had the upper hand. The fight moved off screen with only distorted sounds, groans, and crashing noises making it to the stream. When they reappeared on camera, the situation had escalated. Jangfolk1 was now pulling his guest by the hair and kicking him in the face. The guest's face was swollen and bloodied. However, Jangfolk1 showed no mercy. The fight continued for a few more minutes before Jangfolk1 finally stopped to sit down. Police were later called to the scene and the injured guest was taken for medical attention. Following the incident, Twitch permanently banned Jangfolk1's channel for violent conduct during a live broadcast. Level 2. Fake knife attack skit turns real. These YouTubers were known for staging violent skits and live streams to chase engagement, but this time, things went terribly wrong. During one of their streams, they began a fake knife attack scene where two men pretended to argue. One of them held a sharp knife, waving it around, but when the other moved closer, he held up the knife and pretended to slash at his friend, but the blade slipped and cut his hand for real. The pain was real. He screamed as the others jumped up in shock, realizing their prank had turned into an actual injury. Once viewers realized the blood was real, they flooded the comments with outrage, criticizing the group for taking their method acting too far and failing to use safety measures. Fortunately, the injured YouTuber received treatment and made a full recovery. Cooking teacher collapses. She started her live stream like any other day, cooking in her kitchen with music playing in the background. But this time, her life would end before the stream did. In May 2021, Thai cooking influencer Nguyen Ping Pong, also known as Teacher, began her broadcast smiling and cheerful, ready to make a new dish. She played music on her phone while preparing her ingredients. Everything seemed normal until her expression suddenly changed. She became pale, her smile faded, replaced by confusion. Then, in an instant, she collapsed. Her head hit the pots on the gas stove before she fell to the ground, and a few seconds later, a man rushed into the kitchen calling her name as he tried to lift her. Her face was no longer visible on camera, but the sound of her heavy, labored breathing filled the stream. The man ran out to find help, but by the time anyone arrived, it was too late. Nguyen Ping Pong was later pronounced dead, but the rumors began to swirl. Someone said that her death was linked to vaccination, but her relatives confirmed that she died of an acute heart attack caused by an enlarged heart. Carter F.A. Studio Fire. Nigerian skitmaker and streamer Carter F.A. was live on stream when a magic trick almost turned into a disaster. During the stream, Carter and a few others were having fun when a man dressed in red walked in claiming to be a magician. Excited, Carter told everyone to close the doors and encouraged him to perform. He began excitedly repeating, "Do the magic," completely unaware of what was about to happen next. The plan was to create a dramatic fire effect for the viewers, something that would make the stream go viral. But within seconds, things went horribly wrong. The flames spread faster than anyone expected, catching onto Carter's clothes and quickly engulfing parts of the studio. Panic set in. Everyone scrambled, grabbing anything they could to put out the fire. Some tried using water, buckets, and clothes, while others tried with their bare hands. Carter himself was beating the flames off his body while shouting in shock, visibly terrified as smoke filled the room. Fortunately, after a chaotic few seconds, they managed to put it out before it caused any serious damage. It was only then that they could joke about it. They started laughing uncontrollably and scolded each other about their failed stunt. Luckily, no one was seriously injured. Drunk pranksters steal a bus. The line between a prank and a crime is pretty thin. But if you're drunk enough, you might not even realize which side of the line you're on. 27-year-old James Jones and 28-year-old Jonathan Huckerby were waiting at a bus stop when they noticed a parked 40-seater Skyline bus. In their drunken state, they decided to make things fun and steal it while live streaming the whole thing on Facebook. James, a former bus driver, tried to unlock the doors as they laughed about getting a free ride. But he knew more than just how to drive, he knew how to hotwire it. Moments later, the engine roared to life. The bus rolled forward just as a police car drove past, and that's when the reality of what they were doing hit them. They got scared, so they stopped the bus a short distance away and ran off. Meanwhile, the actual driver returned from his break and found the bus missing. When police began searching, they stumbled upon the Facebook live stream. Later, officers spotted the pair walking down the road and arrested them. James pleaded guilty to driving without insurance, and Jonathan Huckerby to the possession of a Class B drug. Both men were sentenced to 4 weeks in prison. However, due to previous offenses, James received an extra 3 months and a 30-week driving ban, while Jonathan got an additional 8 weeks. Turns out, pranks usually aren't worth the cuffs. Van hits streamer. A Chinese streamer was live on TikTok streaming from the side of the road when she almost lost her life. She was casually chatting with her viewers, unaware of the danger heading her way. On the road nearby, a black van swerved to avoid crashing into a car in front of it. Within a split second, the van was heading straight toward her. The van struck her before she could react, knocking her to the ground. The live stream immediately ended after the collision. Luckily, she made it out alive. Hey, Abyssal fans, before we go any deeper, if you want more Iceberg content, then you should head over to our free Patreon, where you'll find the exclusive Level 8 and uncensored versions of all our Iceberg videos there. Now, let's move on to the next level. Level 3. Father live streams his plan to get rid of his kids. 29-year-old Francois Littlejean went on a Facebook live stream to vent his frustrations, and to the horror of viewers, threatened to kill his own children. At first, many thought he was bluffing, but by the time they realized he wasn't, it would be too late. Days earlier, the children's mother had left Francois with them after a domestic dispute at their home in Oklahoma. Upset and feeling betrayed, he loaded his 3 children into his SUV and began the live stream. During the broadcast, he waved a gun in one of their faces while the others cried in fear.
Video I make, nigga, God rest my soul. Wook, over your foreman, you are responsible for your part in this too. You chose to be a destroyer, right?
Ranted about his partner giving him STDs and abandoning him, ignoring their desperate cries. Moments later, he ended the stream. A concerned family member alerted the police, but by then it was too late. Around 7 a.m., a jogger noticed an SUV parked nearby and grew suspicious after realizing the man inside wasn't moving. When she got closer, she saw blood pooling beneath the vehicle and immediately alerted a neighbor who called 911. However, officers were not ready for what they were about to witness. Francois Littlejean and his children, Trinity, Aaliyah, and Kyron, all dead from gunshot wounds. The man who was supposed to protect them had taken their lives before turning the gun on himself. The sight was so horrific that responding officers had to seek peer support afterward. The police are yet to determine the motive behind the attack. Roger Jackson's attack on Psycho Stu. Wrestling is one sport where the excitement starts long before the ring. Behind-the-scenes rivalries, heated words, subtle jabs, and staged confrontations often build tension and thrill fans. But this time, the act went dangerously out of control. On August 23, 2025, moments before a Knock Pro wrestling event in Los Angeles, California, a live video showed wrestler Stuart Smith, known as Psycho Stu, hitting Roger Jackson on the head with a can of beer.
Hey, I think that's a
The act immediately angered Raja, who misinterpreted it as a personal slight. Stu initially believed Raja was a fellow wrestler and part of the planned pre-show antics, but it quickly became clear that he had misjudged the situation. Another video surfaced showing the two seemingly making up, giving the impression that the incident had been resolved. However, what happened just minutes later would prove that this was far from the truth. Due to a miscommunication, Raja thought he could get his revenge later in the ring. But when that moment came, the staged fight spiraled out of control. During the live match, Psycho Stu was battling another opponent when Raja Jackson, son of former UFC fighter Quentin Rampage Jackson, suddenly stormed into the ring. He lifted Psycho Stu and slammed him hard onto the canvas. Stu immediately blacked out, but Raja didn't stop there. He mounted him and began throwing heavy punches to his head. He punched him 22 times, 18 of them to his head, before the ringside crew members and other wrestlers rushed in, struggling to pull him off. Raja resisted as they tried to pin him in the corner while his victim lay motionless with blood streaming from his face. Psycho Stu's opponent, meanwhile, was caught between following the rules and reacting to a dangerous situation. Despite Psycho Stu's unconscious state and his body visibly twitching, officials instructed his opponent to complete the 3 count, officially ending the match. Stu was carefully lifted onto a stretcher and rushed to the hospital, where he would spend several days in intensive care. He sustained severe head trauma, a lacerated lip, broken teeth, and facial injuries that would require extensive recovery. But Raja had immediately fled the arena. His father, Quentin Rampage Jackson, said Raja wasn't supposed to participate in the match because he was an MMA fighter, not a pro wrestler. Moreover, he just suffered a concussion days before the match. He urged that he face the consequences of his actions. The LAPD arrested him in September. Raja Jackson pleaded not guilty to 1 count of felony battery causing serious bodily injury and 1 count of misdemeanor battery. Despite the severity of his injuries, Psycho Stu has been discharged from the hospital and is continuing his recovery at home. In October 2025, he announced his retirement from professional wrestling, citing the attack and the impact on his health as key reasons for stepping away from the ring. Meanwhile, Raja Jackson's kick account was suspended following the incident, and he now faces a potential sentence of up to 10 years. Why does it not surprise me that he has a kick account? Employee beats up manager while at work. An employee was live streaming from her workplace when her manager suddenly entered the room. She had been bragging about her thousands of viewers when the manager ominously placed a hand on her shoulder. And that's when things spiraled out of control. Provoked, the employee stood up and shoved her manager in the chest as if daring her to fight. Within seconds, it turned into a full-blown brawl. The two wrestled on camera as the employee hurled insults at her superior. At one point, she managed to pin her manager to the ground and pick up her phone to capture a better angle of the chaos, and then the live stream abruptly ended. Neither of them has ever been identified. Chinese streamer got his hand cut clean off. Online threats are usually just talk. That is, until someone decides to make them real. A Chinese streamer was live on Douyin with a friend when an argument broke out between him and a viewer. In the heat of the moment, the viewer, clearly angry, threatened to attack him in the chat. The streamer laughed it off, thinking it was just another internet troll trying to stir chaos. "Come at me then," he said confidently. "We'll wait for you." What neither of them realized was that the viewer meant every word. Minutes later, while they were still live, the same viewer showed up at the streaming location armed with a machete. The audience watched in disbelief as he swung the machete with full force. The first blow sliced across the streamer's friend's back before he even realized what was happening. When the streamer turned around to defend himself, the machete came down again, cutting off one of his hands. Terrified, they ran for their lives, but their attacker wasn't done. He chased them through the street as they screamed for help. Later, he turned his anger towards innocent onlookers and chased them with his weapon. Luckily, both victims escaped and the authorities arrived soon after. Both victims were rushed to the hospital. Despite a missing hand and a deep gash across the back, they survived. Shin, the streamer who had his hand cut off, underwent a 12-hour surgery to have it reattached. A few hours after the attack, police located and arrested the suspect, identified simply as Luo. The live stream, which originally only had 99 viewers, quickly went viral, with shocking screenshots showing the streamer's severed hand lying on the ground. Authorities confirmed that there was no previous altercation and that the attack began from an online dispute. An investigation into the incident remains ongoing. Girl attacked on live stream. During a live stream, a girl was sitting on another girl and repeatedly hitting her in the face with an iron object. But instead of stopping the attack, the person behind the camera and even some viewers egged her on. The victim begged for someone in the room to get the attacker off her, but the room was filled with laughter. The attacker demanded that she apologize, but the victim refused her demands, and therefore the beating only got worse. Towards the end of the stream, the camera zoomed in on the victim's face. It was bloody, swollen, and barely recognizable. Both the attacker and the victim have yet to be identified. Level 4. Kevin Watson live shooting. 42-year-old Kevin Watson sat in his car in a Chicago parking lot and started a Facebook live stream, unaware that he was about to capture his own death on camera. Known online as Tug, Kevin had just left a liquor store owned by his cousin before beginning the stream. As he chatted casually with viewers, his name chain glinting on his neck, a shadow approached his car window.
No respect. What's up, bro? What's up?
Kevin turned his head, clearly startled, and asked, "What's up?" And those would be the last words his viewers ever heard from him. A second later, everything spiraled out of control. The camera jolted as he stumbled out of the car, then a single gunshot echoed through the stream, followed by muffled shouting. The phone continued to record the empty seat while panicked voices could be heard in the background.
I got money. Are you good, God? I got money.
Within minutes, the chat was filled with panicked comments as hundreds of viewers begged someone to check on him. Kevin had been shot in the chest. Witnesses tried desperately to keep him alive, pressing against the wound until help arrived, but he was later pronounced dead at the hospital. His close friends who were witnesses at the scene said that before the shooter followed Kevin to his car, he had approached Kevin and had a brief conversation. However, after he tried to attack him during the stream, Kevin was trying to wrestle with the gun when it went off. It was just a week before his birthday. What makes it even more disturbing is that Kevin had a 6-year-old son. The shooting took place only a few blocks from the South Austin police station. But by the time help arrived, it was already too late. So far, no suspects have been publicly identified, and police have not revealed a clear motive. Some believe it was a random robbery attempt gone wrong. Accidental shooting during Facebook live session. They say you should never play with guns, but for Devin Holmes and his friends, that warning came a second too late. He was sitting in a parked car live streaming on Facebook with two of his friends. During the stream, 25-year-old Cassandra Damper was holding a gun, joking around by bringing it close to the camera. This made Devin uncomfortable, but when he voiced his concerns, his friends laughed it off. They insisted that it had no clip and wasn't loaded. But while Cassandra attempted a playful demonstration, the gun suddenly went off, and to the horror of viewers, the bullet went straight through Devin's head. Panicking, both friends ran out of the vehicle, leaving him in a pool of blood. He was rushed to the hospital and placed on life support. The gunshot damaged the left side of his body, forcing him to relearn how to move and function again. Despite the severity of his injuries, Devin survived after months of rehabilitation. Cassandra, on the other hand, was arrested after trying to wipe off the gun residue from her hands. In December 2019, she admitted to the shooting and was sentenced to 10 years for aggravated assault and 5 years for tampering with evidence. However, she wouldn't serve even half the sentence. Just 6 months later, she was shockingly released on probation and is now serving the rest of her time at home. Chicago Facebook Live beating. A boy who was meant to spend the night with a school friend suddenly went missing. The next time anyone saw him, he was live on Facebook being beaten and humiliated by 4 people. Days earlier, his parents had dropped him off at a McDonald's about 20 minutes from their home. His friend Jordan Hill had come to pick him up, but unknown to them, Jordan was driving a stolen car. For days, Jordan drove the boy around, and they even spent at least one night in that vehicle before heading to an apartment belonging to his friends. There, Jordan met up with Tesfaye Cooper, Brittany Covington, and Tanisha Covington. Inside the apartment, the group began to harass, torture, and humiliate the boy, all while live streaming it for the world to see. At the start of the 30-minute video, the victim was already tied up, his hands bound, and his mouth covered with plastic to keep him from screaming. One of the attackers used a knife to tear his clothes while he sat trembling in the corner. Brittany laughed as she switched to the camera back and forth, filming the attack and giving commentary as if it were entertainment. They shouted hate-filled comments and racial slurs while hitting him. At one point, one of them took a knife and scraped the victim's scalp, ignoring his screams. Meanwhile, the boy's parents had reported him missing and police were already searching for him. The Covingtons' neighbors, disturbed by the noise, complained, but when they confronted the sisters, Brittany and Tanisha, kicked down their door in anger. Furious, the neighbors called 911. When officers arrived, they found the victim outside, bloodied, shaken, and wearing an inside-out tank top, shorts, and sandals. At the same time, Streamwood police, who were investigating the missing persons case, had just discovered the Facebook Live video. Minutes later, Chicago police confirmed they had found the boy. He was taken to the hospital for treatment and later reunited with his family. All 4 attackers were arrested and charged with hate crimes, felony aggravated kidnapping, aggravated unlawful restraint, and aggravated battery with a deadly weapon. Jordan Hill, Tesfaye Cooper, and Brittany Covington faced additional charges for residential burglary. Level 5. Chinese influencer crashed his copter. Tang Fengji, a Chinese influencer, became popular for flying his personal aircraft and sharing the clips with his viewers. On 2 occasions, he had survived crashes caused by technical failures, but this time, he wouldn't be so lucky. As usual, he was filming a video while flying his ultralight single-seat helicopter, which could only reach a maximum height of 600 meters. Tang claimed he had mastered the controls after just 1 week of studying the theory and 6 hours of practice. As over 1,000 viewers watched, Tang suddenly lost control of the aircraft. The machine began to spin out of control and, to the horror of his audience, nosedived straight into the ground before bursting into flames. Viewers desperately tried to get him help, while others, thinking it was a stunt, dropped laughing emojis in the chat. Unfortunately, Tang wasn't wearing a parachute helmet or any other safety gear, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. Since then, his livestream account has been set to private, and only existing followers can still access his past videos. Level 6. Beauty influencer shot during TikTok livestream. On May 13th, 2025, beauty influencer Valeria Marquez was live on TikTok from her salon in Zapopan, Mexico, chatting casually with her audience. She was well known for her lighthearted personality, beauty tutorials, and behind-the-scene clips of her daily life as a salon owner. That afternoon's stream was no different, relaxed, cheerful, and intimate like many before it. She began joking about a very expensive, mysterious gift she was expecting. She explained to her viewers that the delivery man had asked for her before she arrived at the salon and insisted on delivering it to her in person. But she was worried about the mysterious situation. Lightheartedly, she said, maybe they were going to kill me. Were they going to come and take me away or whatever? Unaware of how chillingly prophetic her words would soon become. Sitting in her chair and holding a small pink stuffed pig, Valeria continued speaking with her followers when a man suddenly entered the salon. He walked calmly toward her and asked, "Hi, are you Valeria?" She turned off her microphone, momentarily distracted, and turned her head to face him. For a few seconds, nothing seemed out of place, but he was no delivery man. In an instant, the calm atmosphere shattered. Without warning, the man pulled out a gun and fired twice, once hitting her torso and the other her head. Valeria instinctively reached for her stomach, then her head, and fell backwards as her body slumped in the chair. The pink stuffed toy slipped from her hands as one of her coworkers screamed and rushed to end the live stream. By the time emergency responders arrived, there were no vital signs. Valeria Marquez, only 23 years old, was pronounced dead at the scene. Many of her followers initially refused to believe it was real, thinking it was a prank or a staged clip, until local news confirmed her death later that evening. Authorities in Zapopan have not yet identified the shooter, who fled immediately after the attack. However, they believe them to be hitmen who were paid to carry out the crime. Officers deduced that asking her name for confirmation indicated they didn't recognize her. Witnesses said the masked men left on a motorcycle. Later in May, the police said they were investigating more than one suspect. However, in June, the authorities were able to name one person suspected of the killing. That month, the U.S. Treasury sanctioned 5 senior members of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, for drug trafficking and violence. Among the cartel members sanctioned was Ricardo Ruiz Velasco, who is now being investigated as a suspect in the killing. At the time of her death, Valeria Marquez had over 200,000 followers across social media platforms. They had cheered her on through past live streams and videos, only to witness the horror of her final moments. Following the attack, her TikTok account was closed, leaving her content inaccessible to the public. Yet the attackers weren't done even after her death, and her tomb was vandalized shortly after her burial. The investigation continues, with authorities classifying her killing as a case of femicide, highlighting the ongoing epidemic of gender-based violence in Mexico. Level 7. Executed by hitman during TikTok Live. Jabari Johnson, son of Jamaican reggae artist Ja Mason, better known online as Baba Skeng, was live streaming outside a snack shop, nodding his head to the rhythm of reggae music. He was still dancing and talking to his viewers when a masked man in a black hoodie quietly approached from behind. Completely unaware of the danger, Jabari kept jamming to the beat drop until 2 close-range gunshots went off. He collapsed instantly, but the shooter didn't stop there. Even after Jabari hit the ground, the man fired multiple shots before fleeing the scene. Jabari died on the spot. So far, the gunman remains unidentified, but the attack is suspected to be a gang hit. Couples fight on live stream. Attila Bach and Jewel Runseed were a couple in the in real life IRL streaming community. Online, they were known for their chaotic and violent outbursts during live streams, but this time, things went even further. During one broadcast, an argument broke out as usual when Attila slammed an object on the ground. Furious, Jewel raised her hand to strike him.
You gonna do something?
Perhaps thinking she wouldn't dare, Attila provoked her, but she did. She slapped him across the face several times, but with each hit, his anger grew. In retaliation, he shoved her out of frame and struck her back. When Jewel came back on screen, her face was covered in blood. It gushed from her nose as she cried and screamed for him to leave her alone.
Leave me alone!
However, not everyone believed what they saw. Some viewers insisted the blood was fake and the entire ordeal was staged. One even pointed out that Attila hit her on the left side, but the blood appeared on the right. Was it real or staged? No one knows for sure. If you're still looking for more disturbing icebergs like this one, why not check out our video on the most disturbing footage iceberg next?